Alrighty, thank you everybody for joining us this evening for our last event of Flight Day 3. We have our NP versus PA versus MD panel discussion. Joining us this evening currently, we have Ms. Maria Maldonado, who is a physician assistant and an instructor at the USC Keck School of Medicine. And we also have Ms. Phoebe Chen, who is a family nurse practitioner currently based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Hopefully we will also have joining us later Dr. Diana Garcia, who is a current senior resident in the family medicine program at Harvard UCLA Medical Center in Carson, California. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the three of these wonderful, amazing professionals. Alrighty. So we're just going to start out by asking each of the professionals currently with us a little bit about their background, what prompted them to get into their respective field of clinical medicine, where did they do their schooling, and ultimately what led them to the current roles that they are in today. So Ms. Maldonado, if you can start us off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening or afternoon, wherever the day may find you. My name is Maria Maldonado, and I am a primary care physician assistant and a clinical assistant professor at a PA program here in California. What was the next question, Caleb? Did I do okay with that?
Yeah, you're doing great. If you could just tell a little bit about what led you to becoming a PA, where you completed your PA training, that would be amazing.
Okay, great. So what led me to become a PA, I'll give you the short answer, is I wanted to go, I didn't know what a PA was. So I wanted to become a PA when I discovered that it was a profession where I could practice medicine as part of a team and also go back and work in a lower income underserved area. And I didn't have to do a residency because time was not always on my side at the time. So that's one of the big reasons why I became a PA, and how my journey to become a PA. So I ended up going to the USC Physician Assistant Primary Care Program for PA school. I started my school in 2003 and I finished and graduated in 2006. So I've been practicing for about, do the math, 15 years now. And it wasn't my first career. Like I said, I didn't know what a PA was until much later, but I was a high school teacher before this. I taught algebra. I was a volleyball coach. I did health education. I did go to UCLA after my undergrad, and I got my master's in public health. And I did some community outreach work. And, through the teaching and through the outreach work and health education, it was like something was kind of still missing. So the physician assistant program really helped fill in kind of like the third piece of the pie for me in terms of being able to be a clinician. So I think I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maldonado. And then now, Ms. Chak, please feel free to take the floor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phoebe. I'm a family nurse practitioner, also in a primary care setting. I currently at a federally qualified health center in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to University of Georgia for my undergrad and then decided to go to Emory University in an accelerated practitioner program that took about 2.5 years to complete. There, I got my bachelor's of nursing degree and then went ahead and got my master's of nursing degree. And I started in May of 2018 and graduated in December of 2020. So I actually recently started working and I've been working for 2 weeks now. So just finished that. It's been pretty good so far. I like primary care. I'm actually working with underserved populations, which was what I really wanted to do to begin with, and then see where I want to go next in my career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that sounds like you've had a really interesting and perhaps busy 2 weeks. So congratulations on starting your new role. And so I think a lot of questions that someone who is considering PA versus MD versus NP, maybe they know they want to roll in community healthcare or they want to be a primary care practitioner. But how did the both of you decide that it was PA, it was being a physician assistant and going through PA training, or if it was being a nurse practitioner and going through NP training, that really was your best, I guess, angle or best opportunity to serve communities in the manner and in the ways that you sought to?
So I guess I'll jump in, start it off. I again, like, you know, growing up, all I knew was like MD or nursing. And then when I got to college, I remember I wasn't sure. I knew I was pre-med because that's all I kind of knew. And it wasn't until when I graduated, I was graduating, it was the last week, you know, 4 years of undergrad. And then they had like this career fair on the middle of our campus. They had different booths. And one of the booths was like the CIA booth. And I thought, oh, that'd be so cool to work for the CIA. And then right next to that booth was something that said like physician assistant program. And I was like, what is that? And so I, you know, turned around and, you know, kind of asked questions, and it was like, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And what I heard that just really resonated for me was, here's a program, you go to school for 3 years, and PA school programs are anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So this one was 3 years. I, you know, probably would still need to take some prereqs, like I had not taken microbiology, for example, and I was a psych major, so I had not taken sociology, and for some PA programs, they require sociology. So I was like, well, you know, sociology is a cool class I can take. So I still had some prereqs to work on, but I pretty much had like the bio and the chemistry and, you know, calculus and like Spanish and some of the other requirements. And I thought, what else do I need? You know, and it looked like it was going to be something that I could manage to do. And what I mean by that is, you know, during undergrad, it was very challenging for me to just focus on school. And I had other family obligations, culturally in my family, being one of the oldest, so the oldest woman in the family, or the oldest girl at the time. I was responsible for a lot of the childcare in my home for my younger siblings. And I was also responsible for helping my mom out a lot at home. So I used to have to go home a lot. I lived on campus, but I would have to, you know, drive home often whenever the kids got in trouble or there was something my mom needed me to, you know, work like in the middle of the week, like I need you to watch them. So I would, you know, go back home. Or during the weekends, there didn't seem to be a lot of down or quiet time for me to focus just exclusively on my studies in the way that I noticed like some of my other classmates did. And so from that, like from the get-go, I knew that I wasn't gonna have like the same amount of support, or like the lack of interruptions to just like focus on studying. So you know, I said, okay, let me graduate. And when I graduate, I'll take a year off. I think now it's called a gap year. We didn't call it that back in the day. But I thought, well, I'm gonna have to take like a year off and, you know, maybe do some research in a lab, maybe like take an MCAT prep course, maybe like make up all these things that I couldn't get done as a pre-med undergrad, obviously because of my competing obligations. And so for that reason, when I, you know, learned that I could do this and I didn't have to take the MCAT, I didn't have to do get any like wet lab or research. It wasn't required that I do the research hours. It really made it that I could an accessible profession for me to still be able to do the work that I wanted to do in what I pictured to be the medical profession as an MD. So, you know, I had already committed to a seat and doing my master's in public health work at UCLA. So when I was at UCLA, I was able to learn more about what a PA does and volunteer at a hospital and next to PAs and with PAs. And I speak Spanish, so I was able to interpret, and that granted me a lot more opportunities to be closer to PAs. And so I remember it was like a Friday. It was a Friday much like this, but it was probably like more during like the beginning of the year. And I walked in as a new volunteer to the LA County USC Medical Center, the emergency room. And there was a little like room where the PAs were all working together. And I walked in and I remember it. The salsa music was playing in the background, and you know, one of the PAs looked at me and said, "Hey, you're the newbie." And I'm like, yeah, first of all, like, wow, that's amazing to be seen like that. And then said, "Do you like fish tacos?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I like fish tacos." And he's like, "All right, well, today is Lent Friday and we order fish tacos from such and such place on this Friday." And I'm like, wonderful. So right away, you know, I walked into the scene and you have a PA doing this procedure called a beer block. You have this PA like putting a cast on a patient. You have another PA drawing a picture like on the paper, you know, where the examination table, and like explaining something to a patient. And all the while, salsa music is playing in the background, right? And I'm thinking like, this is my locker room. Like, this is exactly where I want to be. I want to be a PA. I love the camaraderie. I love like just how everybody gets along and they're skilled. And then I happened to also witness that at the time, a new MD resident was being introduced by their attending to one of the PAs. And the PA, you know, the PA was asked if they could show the resident how to do a certain procedure. And I was like, wow. And it's respectful, you know, like people have skills and there really is that team respect for each other's profession. So, so long story. And that's exactly how and when I knew that being a PA was the right profession for me.
Thank you so much for that response, Ms. Maldonado. I really liked how you touched on the notion that physician assistant training and becoming a physician assistant may be a more accessible path for people who are still interested in clinical medicine. And also how you touched on the notion that being a PA and being a doctor, it's a collaborative partnership in any setting. So thank you so much. And before we move on to Phoebe, I just want to introduce quickly Dr. Diana Garcia. She has just joined us, and again, she is a family medicine resident at Harbor UCLA Medical Center, Carson, California. And so if Ms. Chak, if you can please respond to the question, and then we will move on to Dr. Garcia. Thank you.
Okay, so my story is a bit different. I basically got into the healthcare field starting off in high school, volunteering at a hospital that was near my school. In high school, it was announced that the hospital was looking for volunteers during the summer, and I really was interested in learning more about the healthcare field and all the careers and pathways that I could enter before starting college. And so with that mindset, I started gaining patient care experience there and shadowing different professions from physicians, PAs, NPs, and nurses, and even dentists. That was outside of the hospital, but I just wanted to look around. And in college, I tried different things, but ultimately met an oncology NP that I really connected with, and I really loved how that pathway was more shorter in duration. I didn't want to go into residency because of time, and really wanted to start working as soon as possible, given my background. And so I decided being an NP was best. Also, I did learn about PAs, but I felt that I could do something with the NP profession as well is similar in a way. And so I've always wanted to go to Emory University. That was my dream school to go to, since I wanted to stay in Georgia and stay close to my family. And so when I heard that Emory had an NP fast track program, I decided to apply and wish for the best of luck. I got accepted, and I realized it was so expensive, first of all, because it's a private school. And so I talked to the counselors there, and they recommended that I applied for early decision so that I could get put into like the scholarship applications. And so that's what I did, and found other scholarship opportunities by researching on Google, and tried to find other, opportunities there. And luckily I found something called HRSA, which is called, I don't know the full name of it, sorry, but I applied to HRSA and Nurse Corps, and that helped guarantee that I could have my tuition paid for. And that really helped me with my background as well. And so that was really lucky. I had this opportunity and decided to go into this program and become a nurse practitioner there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chak, for that response. That's really awesome that there was this opportunity to, attend your program of choice without the need to kind of worry about tuition costs. So I'll definitely look into that and share that with some of our members at a later time. So thank you. And welcome, Dr. Garcia. So we were just briefly going over kind of what led you into medicine, why medicine and not, another clinical field such as physician assistantship or nurse practitioner or the like.
So I'm so honored to be on this panel discussion with you all. The stories are very just moving so far. So it's so excited to be able to present my story here with you all. So I grew up never wanting to be a doctor. That wasn't something that in my community people were growing up like, I want to be a doctor. Maybe when we were 6, I think when I was 6, I wanted to be an astronaut or something like that. But even in high school, I remember being very nervous about even taking the AP bio class. That wasn't something that I thought was for me necessarily, and I avoided it. I took the AP Spanish, AP History, AP Sociology. I mean, I took everything that I could that was not that hard, the hard bios, the chemistry, the physics. But I finally kind of let that fear just kind of go away, gained a little bit more confidence. And in college, I had heard about a shortage of physicians who were serving underserved communities. So communities that are predominantly Latinx, Native American, Black, Asian American, like people where the resources weren't there, very vulnerable communities, very sick communities. And people, because they're not paying, they can't afford the insurance, they weren't necessarily getting cared for. And so there was, I heard about primary care having a shortage of physicians, and I didn't really know what primary care was, but I went ahead and became what I call an undercover pre-med in college. I actually left California and went to a small liberal arts private school on the East Coast. I actually played softball, and I didn't actually get a softball scholarship, but because I came from a low income community, I was first generation, they knew that I could bring in very unique and important perspectives on how to solve like society's issues. And they're like, and she loves to study. And I do love to study. I've always loved to study. And even while I was there, I started becoming more and more interested in mental health. When I graduated college, I still was interested in pursuing the health professions, but not as a doctor. I wasn't convinced that, I was so concerned that the pharmaceutical industry was just like taking over. And I just had all of these concerns about the medical field, and I still do. I'm very open and honest about that. But I went ahead and started being a part of free clinics, serving as an interpreter, helping with the language, helping people with the language concordance. And there's such a need and such a bridge. And so then I found that it wasn't just a desire, but an obligation. And I'm so glad that I've taken on the responsibility of pursuing the medical degree, because it is a sacrifice. I will say that I took a very non-traditional route. I did a post-bac program because I knew I wanted to stay in California, as opposed to like going to an international school, like one in Guam or in Mexico or whatever. That was definitely an option that I was looking at. But I did a post-bac program that I took on a lot of debt, but I'm the kind of person coming from a low-income community. I definitely am resourceful. I know how to live below my means. And the more and more that I volunteered as I was in the post-bac program, as a pre-med, that my volunteering experiences, my clinical experiences, my research experiences, I started meeting patients who really did need help. And I felt that there is a shortage of people who want to go out there and do really good work in vulnerable communities that can't pay. I am passionate about community service and volunteerism and things like that. And so usually you'll find me on a like Friday or Saturday or something like that. What are we doing? Hey, let's go down to Mexico and do consultas and talk, or let's get on a town hall and talk about COVID vaccination for people who are really where there's a lot of hesitancy. Whatever it is, I've been there, and the medical field has really been an opportunity for me to pursue, I don't know, just my dream of being somebody who gives back to the community. And as much as I teach, I learn from my patients. So I get to walk into a room, and every day it's like something new. It's like you open the door, you don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be an abscess? Is it going to be a pap smear that you have to perform? Is it going to be, is it just going to be mental health, and you're going to have to help this person connect or get to the point where they're ready to connect with a mental health professional? And I actually wanted to become a psychiatrist, and that I've been able, while I'm not trained in therapy, I do feel like I have a lot of good tools in my toolbox per se to help folks out in that way. So there are really great like family medicine, psychiatry, dual degree granting programs that I would definitely want to promote other people to get into, but ultimately what family medicine was for me. So I went to UCSD. I did a post-bac at UCI. I went on and did, it took me a while to get the MCAT score that I wanted. I actually would go sit down for it and halfway through be like, I'm not going to pass this, and get up and leave. And I couldn't get myself to sit for that exam because of the confidence. And I think that the confidence issue is what keeps a lot of folks from pursuing the field. And so I'm really passionate about getting on these panels and getting people to figure out what you love to do, and how you can't be afraid of hard work. You can't be afraid of long studying, of giving up the birthdays, the birthdays, the quinceañeras, the barbecues every weekend. I mean, you're going to do them. I feel like people in the healthcare field, we party just as hard as we study, but we study a lot. And so it has been a huge sacrifice, but it's been something that I wouldn't change for anything. So now I'm at Harbor UCLA as a family medicine resident. I didn't even think I was going to match. When you graduate, when you're getting ready to graduate medical school, you decide what do you want to specialize in. And then some people say, well, I don't know if I'll match in all these places, but I'm going to apply to psychiatry, family medicine, and emergency medicine. Very few people do all three. But then you go and do all the interviews, and then you submit a list of all the schools that you interviewed at. And then one day they give you an envelope and it tells you where you matched. And it's terrifying for some, and other people, it's one of the most thrilling, amazing days of their lives. I wanted to stay in San Diego initially, but I think that what was in that full envelope, because I got to work with people who are really passionate about social justice. That the Harbor UCLA Family Medicine program really promotes that you can't do as much one-on-one in an office as you can going out into the community and promoting things. Like, for example, I'm studying right now for a big exam, and one of the questions was, how can this physician best serve this patient? And it was, go out and figure out how to reduce lead levels in the community, in the water, in the paint. And that was the answer. And I was like, no way, this is, allopathic medicine. They want me to choose, the screening. But if you're just screening for it and you find somebody with lead toxicity, you're too late. And so as physicians and as primary care doctors, and I think that it doesn't even matter what the letters behind your name are, but sometimes those letters and that clinical experience helps move senators, courts. I can write letters for people who are homeless so that they don't get their tents taken up and thrown away, so that they can remain housed. So there's ways that we can advocate for patients that isn't just in the office setting. And I think that that's why this was the profession for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garcia, for that response. I really liked how you spoke to the idea that as a physician, it's not just writing scripts, it's not just providing therapy. It can be so many more things beyond that, much more social, kind of, I guess, social therapeutics, and not so much actual chemically based. So thank you. So kind of a question going back to your training and preparing for your training. As a lot of our conference attendees and a lot of the members of LSSA are either first gen or low income students, and some of you have spoke to being either first generation or low income students yourself, what resources did you take advantage of as an undergrad, as you were preparing to enter your professional programs and as a professional student yourself? And if each of you can kind of speak to that, whoever would like to start first.
I can jump in. So undergrad, in hindsight now, I had no idea how little income my mom made compared to now. And so, you know how they say sometimes like a lot of things that are bad, like sometimes there's a silver lining to them. Well, her income was so low that I qualified for a lot of financial aid. So I did, make sure that I sat with someone or met with someone that can help me fill out the forms necessary to apply early for financial aid. And so I did that. That was very helpful. I also applied to a lot of scholarships, especially scholarships I looked into scholarships from the community. There were a lot of community scholarships that I was able to get, like Madres del Este de Los Angeles was one. And then from that, you hear of more, like they usually had like a dinner, like celebration, and then you hear of other scholarships. So I was writing all of them down and I was applying to all of them. Like, I think it was LULAC had one, and then the National Hispanic Scholarship Foundation. The names might have changed a little bit from way back when. And then also the East Los Angeles Community Union, so Telacu was another one. And then a lot of those scholarships get matched by some alumni associations on your undergrad campus. So like for us at USC, it was back in the day, it was the Mexican American Alumni Association. Now it's the Latino Alumni Association. And like when they match it, for example, if you bring in a local scholarship for like $1,000, the agency may match it like 2 times. So now your $1,000 scholarship became like in total $3,000. So things like that kind of went a long way. As Dr. Garcia mentioned, another thing I learned, right, growing up was surviving on like pennies almost, right? Like a $20 bill for the week, vámonos. So like just being very resourceful and not giving in to temptation of like wanting things before it's your time. I think that really helped a lot. And it wasn't like I didn't feel like I was starving or being a martyr or, you know, like a sufrida or, you know, anything like that. It was just like, that's the way that I was brought up and by necessity. And it came in very handy, let me tell you. You know, even, you know, moving to undergrad. So that was kind of it. Like I moved into like the professional degree arena, applied for scholarships again. And, you know, I just continuously had my ongoing list of where I could apply depending on like what stage of education I was pursuing. And like, you know, mentioned earlier, HRSA. So the scholarship I applied for PA school was the National Health Service Corps scholarship, so NHSC. I knew I was going to go back and work in, you know, what's considered a health profession shortage area or medically underserved area. I already knew this. That's the reason, a big reason I wanted to go into medicine. And so when I found out there was a scholarship out there that would pay you to go work essentially where I was going to go work anyway, I was like, okay, you twisted my arm, give me the money. So I applied for it. I luckily, you know, got it because just because I want it doesn't mean I'm going to get it, right? So I was fortunate enough to get it, and that paid for all of my tuition for PA school. On top of that, they offered back in the day like $1,000 a month stipend, and that was to cover like living expenses. And again, like even though I had that money coming in, it was like if I didn't use it, I wouldn't put it there, but I would, you know, take it to the bank. Or so like I started to save, get into the habit of saving money, even if it was like, you know, $25 a week, whatever, just there was money in the bank. And even when I graduated and became a PA, I didn't go out and go buy a new car. Like I still had my carcanchita that I had, you know, my little car that I've had for years. And I was okay with that. Where I did spend my money then was like travel, right? And trying to have a little more fun because, you know, you work hard. You have to also be able to balance out like a healthy personal social life every now and again. But I think really living within means, staying humble to this day. Like, you know, I take my kids somewhere, I have two kids. And you know, we go to the zoo or we go to a concert or something, and I said, all right, pack your sandwiches. So we usually like take our own food and take our own bottled water and or our bottles and fill up. And I think that really helped a lot because any which way you dice it, you're bound to have to take some kind of a loan. And so that is part of it. It's just also not overspending so that your loan is really you like living a more lavish lifestyle than you're ready for, is my point of view.
Thank you so much.
I guess I could jump in. So I actually was looking into scholarships before applying to Emory's program, just because I knew it was going to be super expensive and didn't know, yeah, I couldn't afford anything like that. And so I think it's all about really using the resources you have around you, going to your college's counselor, financial aid office, and asking them, you know, what kind of scholarships you have currently, and just applying for the sake of applying, and just taking the opportunities there, because you never know if you're going to get it, and you definitely won't get it if you don't apply. That was the mindset I had. And so I took the chances, and in Emory, since you can go into the scholarship application based on applying early decision, I went ahead and did that and got lucky because they looked at basically your resume, and they advocated for leadership and volunteerism more. So I would go ahead and volunteer as much as you can, gain a lot of experience that way as well, and use that to the best of your ability. And also for the second half of my college program, I applied for a similar, I think the HRSA, National Health Service Corps. Yes, that's the one that it is. HRSA stands for Health Resources and Services Administration. And it is basically committing to 2 years of serving at a primary care center in an underserved area, or a federally qualified health center, which is where I'm working right now. All you have to do is work there for a minimum of 2 years, and you get your tuition paid for, and you get additional stipend money per month, which really helped me. I remembered in college, I worked as a waitress just to earn extra income while in school. And also, you know, living to below my means in college, of course. Those all helped me, and I'm very, very thankful for these scholarship opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Dr. Garcia, would you like to add anything?
I think just new ways that I've seen people get very creative about helping themselves out. Like we had an intern that came in last year who had a GoFundMe to help pay for medical, you know, his medical education expenses. And he had raised like $20,000 like just over the years. You know, I'm sure he was pulling from it here and there, but it just that total just asking. I mean, those are like new ways of just advocating for yourself and being open to asking for help. But yes, I applied to every scholarship I could get my hands on. I even remember in high school applying to one, and they're like, "Ooh, this is actually not for you," you know, like as they were interviewing me. And then they're like, "But what school are you going to?" And I was like, "Oh, Wesleyan." Like, "Oh, we're alma mater. That's our alma mater. Oh my gosh!" Like this was actually a scholarship for people who don't qualify for like the low income, and then they don't have enough money, so it's like right in the middle. But you know what? We're gonna give it to you anyways. And that was like $1,000 a year while I was in college because I applied. I shouldn't have been there, but they just took favor to it. So I love what Phoebe was saying about just put you know, you have to be willing to get rejected, and you have to be willing to get rejected over and over and over and over again. And I think that that's the name of this game, getting through a medical education, because there's lots of schools, lots of scholarships, lots of things that you have to know who you are while you're doing it, and you have to be able to write it over and over and over again for personal statements and all these things that they want you to put onto paper, so that they know, oh, this is somebody who's not just going to take the money and, you know, quit next year. You know, just I think that once there's just a lot of money out there, and I know a lot of people worry about the cost of it, but you will be able to pay off the debt that you get into being in the medical field.
Thank you so much for your response. So moving down our question list, I think as first generation students, low-income students, students from underrepresented minority backgrounds, it can kind of seem daunting to want to pursue a career in the healthcare field when, you know, you look around and a majority of the current practitioners are of a single race, or they have family members already in medicine, etc. So if you could all kind of speak to if you did experience imposter syndrome at any point in your education or in your training or in your current practice, and how did you kind of overcome that and kind of remind yourself that you did belong in your chosen profession? And anyone can start.
Okay, I guess if
Sorry.
no, go for it, please, Phoebe.
No, you can go first. I'll wait.
Okay, so that's a really good topic to talk about, I think, because I always refer to back in the day, right? So like, again, like 15, 20 years ago for me, like back in the day, we didn't really talk about this. I don't really think it was like widely recognized, and I don't think there was always like a term for what maybe some of us were feeling, and then like just felt like, well, I guess let's just add that to the list of things that feel funny for me, and let me just like internalize everything. I think I think when I first started to, it's just that voice in my head that's always kind of been there, and I never like, I don't know when it started, but it's just that voice that's just like, has been filling my head with doubt at one point or another, or like that. Maybe I just got in because, I made people laugh, or maybe I got in because, never attributing that my success was because I had worked hard for it, and I had studied and I put in, I like Dr. Garcia was saying, like, you sacrifice and stuff. And, maybe you're not like 100%, but you're really trying, and it shows, and you put in the effort, and, you do stand out, because a lot of times it's like showing up and getting ready to work, and, what needs to get done here. And this is what I want. I've thought about this. This is, I may not have it in clear vision, but this is the direction I want to go in. And this is what's going to get me to be able to live a life of service in the way that I picture it. And so, there was times where I had a lot of doubt, like even undergrad. It was such a shock, a culture shock of being in like a big old like biology auditorium classroom. And everyone seemed to know exactly what the professor was saying except me. And then feeling like, oh, I got to go back and review that. Like, that's going to take me like 3 hours to get through the first 10 pages, and there's like 20. And this is just one class. And just like, why am I not like the one nodding my head in here? And then just feeling kind of less than all the time, and just that gets in my head, and then like getting in my head. And then moving into like grad school, again, just kind of like, again, feeling, man, when is that feeling ever going to go away? Like, I'm actually up to date with what everybody's talking about in class, or like, I it's still not clear to me, but I don't want to be the one asked, or, like, do I belong here? Like, should I just go, and should I have stopped at my undergrad, and should I have just like, started doing something then? And, for tests, I had this story where, like, when I was in PA school, back in the day, we would do Scantron tests. So we had to bubble in our name and our social security number and the date, and, form A or B. And like, that took forever. Like, and I'm like, I haven't even started the test, the clock's ticking. But all that would get me very anxious. So a lot of my imposter syndrome was like kind of dancing with anxiety a lot. And it was a great source of anxiety for me. And I just remember, like, when you take a little, like, for me, when I started to take more ownership of me, and just kind of started to like put blinders on, if you will, and just focus on me, I started to develop a routine. And that routine for me was, you know what, let everyone start filling in the bubbles for the test. I'm not ready for that. So I would put the test underneath my desk, and I would literally like put my head down. And now, back in the day, I don't think we called it this, but now it's like meditation, or just like mindful breathing. And so I remember I would just like, take my breaths, and I would say, like, you're from Islos, like, you've worked hard, you have a lot of experiences that have made you a valuable part of this team, whatever team you're on, like, you deserve this, you've worked hard, like, you got this, like, you've been through a lot, like, this test isn't going to knock you down, you've studied, believe in that, believe that you've worked hard at that too. And it's showtime, let's go. And then it was like, all right, good self-talk. And then I would pull out my paper while everyone's taking the test, and then I'd start with my bubbling, And so I kind of did it on like at my pace, when I was calmer, when I could think better. And then there was not one exam that I failed when I was in PA school. So I had to start to look at it like from data points. Like, okay, Maria, like, think of the history in the last 20 years. When have you failed? And when, and I have. And when I failed, what did I do? Oh, I went to go get help. And did you improve? I did, so it's a lot of like these self-talks where you realize like you're being super harsh for myself, being super harsh on myself. When in reality, like, the proof was in the pudding. Someone doesn't all of a sudden wake up one morning and, oh, I got into med school just like that. No, you've been working hard for that, and that's got to stand for something. So, so for me, it was just, even till this day, as a clinician, and as an educator, there are days where I'm still hearing the voice. So imposter syndrome, at least for me, is not something that just kind of goes away. It's something that's walking with you. And it's like, what kind of a friendship are you going to develop with this part of yourself? And how is it going to be that you yourself serve as your own like best friend, or you express that self-compassion, or you read on and learn about imposter syndrome. And so like, I know that I have the ability to reframe what's going on, in these conversations in my head. I read that, it's important to talk about it. I read that it's important to talk about it and listen from other people who also experience it. And so you feel like you're not alone. And it's not something like that makes you, like something that's not yet been discovered by scientists yet. No, like it's something that is all of us, it's part of us. And some of us just are able to tame it a lot better than others. But I mean, I'll stop there. Sorry, it took a really long time. It's just, I think it's such an important topic to talk about and normalize. And like it is there. Like, don't run from it. Don't act like it's not there. Like, no te veo, like, no, te veo, like, and let's dance. Like, let's go. We got this.
Well, going off on that, I really liked how you said that you should treat imposter syndrome as a friend, because I definitely have that right now going into my now 3rd week of working for the first time as a nurse practitioner, new grad. I have anxiety, it's there all the time. And I don't know if I can do this. I'm always going into work saying, how can I do this? How can I really be a clinician? And I think that does come with experience. Hopefully it'll go away at some point or be there, but as a friend. But, being the first person in my entire family to be in the medical field, there's not really anyone I could rely on or talk to medicine about. And so I think it's super important to find a close group of friends in your program and gain support that way. If you have no one in your family who understands medicine or the healthcare field in that aspect. So that's super important. And also, in the end of the day, I think being able to help my patients is really rewarding, and that helps me want to get better as a clinician. And even though I have imposter syndrome, at least I can look at my patients and be like, hey, I can actually do something for you, hopefully, and make your day better. Yeah.
I should have been taking notes when you two were talking. That was so awesome. First of all, I think imposter syndrome, somebody said something, and I'm just going to butcher this, but I'm going to try to get it out anyways, because I think it's an important way of framing imposter syndrome. So I hope this makes sense. But basically, we were all sitting outside the other day, and we were kind of debriefing about, we're closing the residency chapter and going on to the next, to working out in the field, getting our first jobs as physicians. And imposter syndrome came up, and it came up in the context of like test taking, and it came up in the context as being somebody's doctor. And so we already have our panels, we have our patients, and it's hard. It's meant to be hard. Like, nobody said that this is going to be easy, but I think some of us, especially me, have made it a lot harder because I haven't been able to tame that anxiety. So I feel like if I would have done, just gone into like testing environments a lot calmer and more confident, that would have helped me just get through the process a lot easier. Like, it was unnecessarily hard. And so I want to encourage people who are pursuing these fields in medicine that it is an environment that we weren't meant to be here. That the reason that we look around and every doctor on TV that we see is usually, white, male, tall. These things are not by accident. The imposter syndrome is something that's been almost like systematically put into our heads. And we have to be really strong about taking that into a ball and acknowledging it, being kind to ourselves, but knowing that everybody's feeling that way. Just some people look a lot different when they are. Because I remember watching this one woman come in to talk to us, and I was just like, I'm going to quit medical school. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I looked at her, we're on the elevator, she was going to give a talk at a panel, and she was like, this neonatal pediatric critical care, like just top of the line, the hardest medicine you can imagine. And she's like, I was like, how do you do this? She's like, I don't know. Like, she told me, I still don't know how I do it, but I show up and I do it anyways. And so I just to like clarify that previous point, so we were sitting out there, and my friend, this white woman, was like, hey, you guys are all talking about this imposter syndrome. And I've never felt that. I don't know what it is to feel that. And I feel so like I wish that I could take it away from you, because I know that this is something that's systemically put onto you by the way this field works, by the way. And that's why I feel like diversifying the field, including more people of color with different diverse backgrounds, and a lot of it is going to help change the field so that we can provide better medicine, because the medicine we provide is still not, the medical care that we provide is still not as good as it should be compared to like what we're spending and all of that. So I think that the medical, like that there's just like a systemic thing that we're meant to feel that way. And I think when you acknowledge that and you say, all right, I'm going to be strong and yes, kind to that friend, because it is something that I still carry with me. It just helps ease how overwhelming it can be at times. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it definitely did. Thank you, all of you, for those very thoughtful, candid answers. And now that we're coming up on an hour, I just wanted to open up the opportunity to any of the attendees to share their own questions before we close today's discussion. So please feel free to either unmute yourself or share in the chat a question for all of these professionals or just one of them.
I have a question for all the panelists. So what were your support systems like while applying to medical school and your nurse practitioner program and to PA school, especially as a first generation or low income student? You could feel alone sometimes. So what was that like what was that process like for you all?
So in rotation, nerve-wracking. It just seems so big. It seems so big and massive, and like it hadn't been done by anyone that I knew before. And you're just navigating through what seems to be like uncharted waters. But again, you just like reach deep and say like, I've been in so many situations that like, I don't even know if people ever experience half of this stuff as much as we've experienced by the age of 10, that like, I think I could figure this out. And I recognize this fear. And I know there's this thing where you can feel fear and excitement very often. So, I just kind of like embrace that, but very scary. Also like not knowing what you're getting into financially, because I've never talked about like large sums of money like that, like potentially going into debt or like what tuition is $50,000. Guess this. So like my parents now, like growing up, no, okay, that's a lot. That's like out of my leagues, like just again, feeling like imposter syndrome, right? Like what, this is not for me. This is not my world. But I think what helped also was having support from like whatever counselor or teacher who was willing to spend time with me. There are a lot of people out there that really want to mentor and help. So even if they don't know all of the answers, I think just their presence and their support and their expression of like, hey, I got your back. And you take it across the finish line as best you can is one of the things that I do remember from way back when. But applying for PA school, I didn't get in the first time. So that's not uncommon. And I just, you get back up, you ask. I really encourage you to go back and ask after you applied or you interviewed or you didn't get in, and ask, how can I improve my application? What do you think I can do to make myself a more competitive applicant? So go back and ask. But I didn't get in the first time, and it was okay, because I was like, all right, I get it. And I'm going to keep at it. And this is cool, because the fact that I still want to keep going and pursue this tells me that this is probably what I really want to do. And I don't know that a lot of people have that certainty in their lifetimes sometimes. So that's me.
Thank you.
For me, it was my family, my parents, being super close to them was very important for me. And therefore, I wanted to apply to schools that were only in Georgia. I think being close in proximity really matters to me most, just so I can get some sort of support system going on. So that's just my personal comfort zone. And that has really helped me a lot throughout school.
And then I'll just add, and that's a really great question to be asking. The best advice I got, and I still do it to this day, is you ask for help. And then when you find somebody that you're like, whoa, they're pretty cool, you ask them, will you be my mentor? And when they put up their email address or their phone numbers and things like that, they're not doing it to be nice. They're doing it because they want to be contacted and they're willing to sit down for 30 minutes for a cup of coffee. Yes, we're all busy. Life is busy. Everybody's going to be busy for the rest of their lives, but people will make the time if you are willing to put yourself out there and ask for their time. And, you know, and be like, hey, I want to invite you to a cup of coffee or something. Like medical professionals, I mean, obviously this isn't true for everybody, but you offer us coffee, we're there. You know, we will be there. And asking for somebody to mentor you, I think that that's a powerful ask, and you should be willing to do it when you come across people who are close to you, who you feel comfortable talking to. And it should be on different levels, not just for medicine. It should be like students, and then people who have gotten there, maybe somebody who in the past has been on admissions committee. So
Thank you so much. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful responses. And if that is the only question left to be had, I believe this concludes our panel discussion. Thank you so very much, Dr. Garcia, Ms. Maldonado, and Ms. Chak, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and your evenings to be with us here today and to speak to our attendees currently here and to whomever will view this later. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for your time.